welcome to Mums at the Table, and welcome to what is our last episode of 2018. I am so excited because today we have in two special guests, and we're going to be keeping the discussion real, raw and relevant as always. And I'd just like to welcome our fellow panellists, Melody, thanks for joining us, Fiona,
hi,
hello, and Rachel, hi.
Happy almost New Year.
Yeah, tomorrow, so exciting. Well, as you know, Christmas is over for another year and time is just flying by. So today we're going to be giving a bit of a recap on 2018. Did we meet our goals? What struggles did we face? And can you relate? Trevor Schofield will also be coming into the studio to teach us how to start 2019 without the hangover with some of their delicious mocktail recipes. And Dr. Kristy Goodwin will be joining us to discuss how we can get through the holiday season, or really any time of year, without feeling guilty about screen time and technology with kids. All that coming up next. But first, as I'm sure you're aware, 2018 is rapidly drawing to a close, and whether it's been an amazing year of new opportunities and adventures or one struggle after the next, I think it's really important to reflect and touch base with your goals. And ladies, that's what I wanted to do right now. So, did we fulfill our goals this year? How did it go? Were there any curves in the past, you know, things you weren't expecting?
Well, look, we welcomed a new addition to our family. So baby Oceana is in the house. Yeah. So it's been an amazing blessing to our family, but the rest of the year has been a blur. So, yeah.
As a result.
As a result. Probably prior to, I really don't have an excuse for why baby brain has just continuously stayed with me. But yeah, no.
That's one for the books, though. I mean, adding a new addition to your family.
4 under 4?
Yeah.
God is good.
I always admire you, seriously.
No, you're too nice, Rach. And I admire you because you've got so much on your plate. Like, you've had so many conferences on this year as well.
Yeah, I had my conference on. I think I've looked back at old photos of Jax and just seen the height, like his height from below the table to now, like, peering above the table. Yeah, I think those things, I don't necessarily have all these written out goals, but I think you can look back. You sometimes discount what you've done until you start looking back at old photos.
You've done so much. This lady right here, boss lady. Boss lady.
Let's not talk about me.
I have a very simple goal, keep Elliot alive, and he's still alive.
You've done it.
Do you find as mums it's difficult to sort of set goals and actually keep them? Like, is it even a realistic thing to be doing?
I'm a goal.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying what is a goal? For me,
yeah.
I love like checklists and all those things. My mom and I used to make goals list all the time. So I miss that. I miss being able to be in that space with her and like make goals together. It sounds cheesy, but that was our thing. Like,
I think pre-kids I was able to set down the goals, but I think after having kids, I'm just trying to put food on the table every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, make sure they're fed, make sure everyone's clothed and cleaned, and the house is clean, as we like to mop all the time. But yeah, so I think it's a daily goals for me, and just making sure we make it through that day, and then the next day we start fresh.
I think one of the interesting things that has happened for me this year, right? This was the first year that we actually were solely on one single wage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But it was really interesting how things happen. Like, I can only give it up to say that it's God, that things happen that when you need them to happen. And if they didn't happen that you want them to happen, you realize that actually the timing is actually just right for it to not happen at that time as well. So in that sense, it actually worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's so important to also express gratitude because, as you say, God does carry you through, and so often we try to control our lives, mopping and all that. Yeah. But yeah, when you actually look back, it's like, wow, that timing was perfect and I have so much to be grateful for. So yeah, very important to do. Well, coming up next, Gia and Olive are cooking up some delicious avocado pops in the kitchen.
Hi everyone, we're making avocado ice cream.
Avocado ice cream, what's your name? Tell everyone.
My name's Moses and we're making avocado ice cream.
Very good. We are making avocado ice cream. We're making avocado icy poles. We were just in Greece and my sister-in-law, who's just given birth to my first niece, say hi.
Hi.
Say hi, Alkistis.
Hi, Alkistis.
And so we went to Greece and Auntie Alkistis made us avocado icy poles, and I thought, wow, that sounds very interesting, but it was actually delicious. The kids loved it, so I asked her for the recipe, and here we are. We are actually going to make it, and it's very easy. It's 1 whole avocado, so make sure the avocado is ripe, because that's what's going to make it nice and soft. This one is actually a Christmas ice cream, because we are making it green and red. We've got 1 cup of spinach, baby spinach, 2 tablespoons of either honey or 100% maple syrup. 1 can of, of coconut milk. Make sure it's full cream coconut milk, okay? And we also have 1/4 cup of lime juice, fresh lime juice. Do you like lime juice? Yep. So we'll put 1/4 cup of lime juice, and I've got 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence or vanilla extract. Extract?
Extract.
We're gonna blend it. Ready? Oh, thank you, Mr. Helper. Put it higher and higher and higher. Okay, so now we have it. Now this is a high-speed blender, but if you've got a blender that's not like a high-speed blender, just keep blending until all the spinach is actually blended through, because you don't want bits of spinach in your ice cream or your paddle pop. And what we're gonna do to make them Christmassy, because usually for Christmas, the kids get really too much sugar. So by the end of it, they're just like, ah. So we're just gonna put strawberries and make this into a healthy treat for Christmas Day. For if you've got visitors, we're gonna pour this in. Oh, careful. It's gonna be all, whoa, it's a volcano. Done. And we're gonna put those in the freezer. But I've got some here for you guys to see. Thanks to Rachel for giving us these awesome little
I want to eat
ice cream
I want to eat
molds. Whoa, and look at that. They've even got like a little, you can sit them on there so it doesn't drip. It's got your red strawberries through it, so you can have that one.
Mama.
There's your little, it actually looks like a Christmas tree. So there you go. Ooh. If you want some more recipes, please follow us on Facebook, Mums at the Table, or you can go to our website and it's at mumsathetable.com. You'll find lots of great recipes for your family, for your children, for lunch boxes. They're all plant-based, whole foods. You'll really enjoy them. We'll see you next time for some more recipes, right?
Yeah.
Say bye.
Bye.
Looks delicious. Well, if you're a parent, then you're probably all too familiar with techno-guilt. It's what you might feel when your child prefers to play Minecraft and build a fort with their friends, and of course when they pull the techno tantrum when you try to take the iPad away. These days there are just so many myths and conceptions when it comes to raising kids in the digital world, and many parents feel like they're failing to raise healthy kids. But luckily, here to fight that battle head-on is children's technology and development expert, Dr. Kristy Goodwin. Kristy, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Now, okay, the first question I want to ask you is one that's on every parent's lips, I'm sure. Let's dispel the myth once and for all. How much screen time is okay?
Look, that really is the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
and I wish I had a really simple, straightforward, quantitative number I could give you, but unfortunately I can't. We do have government guidelines that give sort of a rough estimate as to how much screen time kids could have, and the recommendations say that for 0 to 2-year-olds they shouldn't have any screen time. So you know you're supposed to tear them away from the iPad and blindfold them when the TV's playing. Yeah. For 2 to 5-year-olds it's about 1 hour a day, and for 5 to 17-year-olds it's no more than 2 hours of entertainment media a day, so that doesn't include their time at screens. However, those guidelines are not only, I can see some of you here panicking, I can feel the tension and the evil looks, they're unrealistic, and what I say is that focusing purely on how much is not the most important question. It is, particularly if it's displacing kids' developmental priorities, but we need to look at the bigger picture. What are they doing with the screen? When are they using it? You know, what times of the day? That can be problematic.
So it's what they're watching.
What they're watching, playing or creating. When, you know, we know that it can have a huge impact on the quality and quantity of children's sleep and naps if they're still napping. We know it can cause attentional issues in the classroom if they're watching rapid-fire, fast-paced action before school. So there are so many nuances that we need to consider beyond just the how much. I think all kids have unique tipping points. You know, we can't prescribe an amount of screen time simply based on a child's chronological age. We need to look at the bigger picture. So I think we can have rough estimates. What I say to parents is look at and make sure that their screen time isn't derailing or displacing their basic developmental needs. Are they still playing with their friends? Are they socialising? Are they sleeping? Are they building real relationships? If those basic needs are being met, then we don't need to have the techno-shame and techno-guilt about screen time because it's not harming their development. The problem is when it shifts the other way and those basic needs are being displaced by screens, and that's when
That's the issue.
problem.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, because I have a 2-year-old, right? When he was born, not long after our TV broke down, and we basically got to the point where we're like, we're not replacing this TV, we're not going to have TV in the homes at all because of this whole techno-guilt, right? And then the phones come on, and occasionally we put on like a 30-minute show or 15-minute show, and goodness, the times when it goes on, the guilt in my heart. I'm just like, oh, I'm the worst mother ever. You're saying that that's not too bad?
It's not. You know, if we have firm boundaries, you know, if he was to play or your child was to play on it for hours and hours and revert to it all the time, it could be problematic. But having firm boundaries and finding age-appropriate content, you know, if they're watching age-appropriate content, kids can actually learn from screens. And that's one of the myths I like to dispel. The research tells us that if kids are using age-appropriate technologies in intentional ways, they can actually benefit from it. So it's not all toxic and taboo for them. I think we need to ditch that. And I know I grew up, I watched television occasionally, and I asked my mum, was she riddled with techno-guilt? And she assures me that she wasn't. So I think this is because there's new technologies, and obviously it's more accessible for them, so there's more opportunities for them to revert to it. We're often seeing a lot more kids today throw techno tantrums.
Oh my goodness.
We can talk about that. And there's nothing wrong with kids. We actually know it's a typical neurobiological response when they're emotionally combusting, when we ask for our iPhone back or try and pry the TV remote control from their tight grip. So I think that the technology is evolving, and as parents, we're sort of trying to figure out how to navigate this landscape, often with a lot of conflicting and confusing advice along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned it's really important to set strict boundaries, and I totally agree. But at the moment, it's holidays, right? All the kids are not at school at the moment. So should we, as parents, sort of be lax and let them have more screen time? Is that a bad thing to do?
Not necessarily. I know many families have more relaxed technology rules and boundaries during holidays, but I think we need to clearly articulate what those boundaries are in advance before the iPad is switched on or the gaming consoles in their hands. It is too difficult to try and negotiate. One of the reasons we know is that when kids use technology, the reason that you get, I call it the digital zombie, you know, when you try and gain their attention, you could be running around on fire in the background and they're completely oblivious to what they're doing.
That sounds like my husband.
Yeah. well, it's no accident because technology developers and app developers have worked to get your kids or your husband, in this instance, into what we call the state of flow. We become so engrossed and enraptured with what we're doing. So I think if we're going to have boundaries, we need boundaries around what they can play, access or watch, when they can watch and access it, and also how. And I often say to parents, particularly if you've got kids under 8, giving them an amount of time is often a redundant exercise because they often don't have a conceptual understanding of what half an hour is or an hour. So we're much better off just to give them quantities. And even if kids do understand time, you know, quantities of episodes or YouTube clips or the level they can get to in the game are much more precise and tangible for them. And you're much less likely, I don't promise you won't get it, but you're less likely to get that emotional eruption at the end.
Yeah, so how did you manage it with your kids? You've got an 8-year-old and a
5-year-old and another one.
Congratulations.
By the way. Letting me know it's here. We use screens. So I say to parents, plan technology, don't ban it. If we digitally amputate our kids, if we, you know, tell them that it's the forbidden fruit, we drive the behaviour underground. And whether we love it or loathe it, our kids are going to inherit a digital future. So what we need to do as parents is to teach kids how to use it in healthy and helpful ways, and therefore how to mitigate some of the negative effects as well.
I heard something interesting. It seems like you weren't always an advocate for screen time in that sense. Like, apparently you used to be a no screen time kind of mum as well?
Not necessarily. I fell into this work purely accidentally. I wish I had a very clear career trajectory mapped out, but I didn't. I was a teacher and an academic who looked at the research on technology and kids. And then I experienced life's greatest equaliser and I became a mum for the first time. And I'd taken my son for his developmental check with the paediatrician, got the all clear, but I was the A-type nervous first-time mum and worried the paediatrician may have missed something. My second son completely forgot his 6 and 12-month developmental check. I'm declaring that on TV. But I took my first son back to the local healthcare clinic nurse to do the 6-month developmental check, and she asked me all the regular questions, and then she turned and asked me what screen time he was having. And I thought, as a researcher in this field, she was just checking that I walked my talk. And I said, well, nothing. And she leaned forward a little more and she wagged her finger and did the skippy sound and did the whole... and proceeded to tell me that my son would fall behind at 6 months of age if he wasn't watching particular educational DVDs and learning colours and shapes on the iPad.
Wow.
Now, I was flabbergasted, hadn't been caffeinated, couldn't come up with a coherent response, but I left that clinic appointment and I went home, and ironically, I started a social media campaign that babies need laps, not apps.
Yep.
It went viral. And at the same time, I thought I need to write a book about this because this is such a confusing and conflicting topic. There are so many myths and misconceptions that parents are given, and we're all trying to figure this out. So yes, screens can be beneficial if they're introduced at the right time, and dunking kids in the digital stream prematurely before their brain is able to cope with it can be a problem.
And so what age would that be?
Look, our government says 2 years. I look at the neuroscience, and the neuroscience tells us that kids actually can't make meaning from a 2D screen until they're about 18 months of age. So the American Academy of Pediatrics have said from about 18 months of age you can use screens, and kids can actually learn from them. Before that, it's not to say don't use it, but don't use it under the false impression that you're preparing them for Harvard, because that is not what you are doing. If you need to have a shower, or if you need 5 minutes of solace, then certainly pop them on in front of something, but don't do it under the guise that it's educational. I think we're often misled.
That's what some parents do, use the TV screens or the screen as a babysitting tool, which, you know, so how do you get into that fine line between using it as a babysitting tool and using it for the purpose of the child education and learning and being up to date with technology?
Yeah, it's a really tricky landscape because one of the problems is the technology is evolving constantly. Just when we get a handle over our latest child's digital infatuation, along comes something else to supersede it. So this is something parents are really grappling with. When it comes to using technology as the babysitter, I know many of us, and I admit, you know, I have done it from time to time, but we need to be careful about using that as our standard operating procedure, because we start to develop habits of dependency, and our kids will very quickly associate boredom with a screen or feeling frustrated and angry. And so what we're actually seeing is that kids are actually seeking solace in screens. They're using the screen to self-soothe. And I think if we were really reflective, a lot of us do that as adults, and it's not necessarily helpful for our kids.
Yeah, Kristy, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Unfortunately, we have to stop there, but I would love to ask you more questions. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
All very interesting and very relevant. If you'd like to learn more or listen to Dr. Kristy's wonderful advice or buy her book, make sure you visit her website, KristyGoodwin.com. Well, in the spirit of cultivating good habits, now we turn to our resident psychologist, Colette Smart, who's here to talk about encouraging a growth mindset in our kids.
Hello, I'm Laura Bennett. Personal growth is a term we've heard a lot about lately, and a lot of books tell us how to better ourselves, and many say that it relates to whether we have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. To explain those a little bit more, psychologist and parenting expert Colette Smart joins us. Hello.
Hi, Laura.
Now, first of all, please explain, what is a fixed mindset?
So it actually comes out of 20 years of research by Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck. And what she says is a fixed mindset comes from the idea that we have fixed abilities. We're born with something and there's nothing we can do to change it. So you're either smart or you're dumb, or you're this or you're that. There's no kind of in between. And so essentially we have this idea that there's nothing we can do to change who we are, and we're actually driven then by this fear that we're going to be exposed. So if we show some kind of an effort or try to be slightly different, someone's going to catch us out and say, yep, you see, you're on the dumb end. That's essentially what it is.
Right, so I'm guessing then that the growth mindset is the one we'd much prefer to go after. What does that involve?
So growth mindset really helps us or tells us we need to be or become comfortable with effort. So an effort is success. So it's not the end goal that makes us successful, it's our effort that makes us successful. Now, this isn't the idea that every child should win a trophy and everybody can be good at everything. It's not that. Essentially, it's about us using our abilities and our talents and then bettering those. And even things that we're not great at, we can improve on them, and being okay that being a failure or failing in life is part of humanness. And even in our failures, we learn and we grow. That is the growth mindset.
Yeah, a bit of progress is kind of the goal, right? And particularly as parents looking at their children, if you're wanting to start to develop a growth mindset in them in a young age, how do you do that?
So obviously start with modelling. So talking to yourself in a kind way. So when you've done something wrong, also watch how we say, oh, I'm so dumb, I shouldn't have done that, or why did I do that? I'm such a failure. And also how we define success around our children, their sports, their academic abilities, anything that they do, we need to model our language, change our language differently, and then teach our children to really still set goals, but then persist. So don't give up because it gets too hard or you tired of the soccer season. Actually, persistence teaches growth. So when things get difficult, you help your children push through and praise the effort. Again, it comes back to the effort. Praise the effort, not the end result, not the success or the final mark, not praising just the trophy. Tell your children things like, I loved watching you play, rather than, oh, I'm so happy you won. Yeah. That all those kind of changes in our language are what change us to become more of a growth mindset person than a fixed mindset person.
It's a great explanation, Colette. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I like that very much. Encourage your kids to play, not just to win, and build those attributes in them early. A little bit of persistence is what pays off. Thank you for watching. You can find more of these segments. Head to our Facebook page or also jump on the website as well.
With 2019 just around the corner, celebrations are definitely in order, but New Year's typically means alcohol, crowds and late nights, and this can be a toxic combination. But in recent years, dry January, or drynuary, has been on the rise, with people ditching the hangover and committing to non-alcoholic drinks for the whole month of January to start the year off the right way. Well, if this is a challenge you'd like to take on, then you're in the right place, because we've brought in Trevor Schofield, co-creator of Alco-Free, to teach us how to make some delicious mocktails. Trevor, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited. This all looks very interesting. What are we going to be making today?
Well, we're going to make some mocktails that are on the sweet side.
Good.
Mocktails typically, or cocktails, can be bitter, they can be sweet, or they can be sour. But we're going to do some sweet ones today, which are great for the family, and I think you'll all enjoy them. So why don't we kick off with a mojito, which is a favourite of many people. And all I do is I get a little bit of lime, and I cut that up into little pieces, probably using normally I would use about 1/4 of a lime per cocktail. And we put that into, I'll do 2 glasses. So we put that into there, and we put some mint in as well. And this is organic mint out of my garden. And the trick with mint is not to damage it too much. So just put it in your hand and hit it like that twice, and it just bruises it without actually breaking it up.
Does that bring out the flavour?
What I should have done first is muddle these a little bit. Yep, so it brings out the flavour if you
Do you want me to do that while you do the mint?
Yeah,
no?
great. Yeah, brilliant.
Oh, that's the warning to your kids, you know.
Yeah, that's right. So we just do that with a little bit of mint.
I've got to say, mint as a garnish always confuses me. I'm like, are we supposed to eat the whole sprig of mint, or...?
Yeah, well, you don't. You just get the smell and the flavour. If you can smell that, it's just really nice.
Just bruise it a bit.
You've done a great job.
Okay.
Perfect. So just
being
put
a
that in there.
bartender.
Yeah. And we put in some of our... this is a pre-mixed mojito from Alco-Free. And we just put in about 70 ml into each glass. So you can have it just by itself if you want to with ice. But if you garnish it with this, it just makes it so much nicer.
So where can we get these drinks from? Are they in like the supermarkets, or is it just online?
No, look, unfortunately not at the supermarkets, but they are online at Alco-Free.
Awesome.
And I'm pretty sure our website will be up somewhere.
Yep.
And then I'm also adding a little bit of non-alcoholic rum, okay? So it just gives that little bit of richer flavour. And I think we put in about, what have I got here?
And I guess it's great for people who, like if you're breastfeeding, or if you're pregnant, or if you're the sober driver. I guess this is the way to go.
And you want to feel like you're still part
And
of
you're
the
still part of the festive season, not just standing there with your bottle of water.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you find that there's an increase in interest in mocktails at all? Like,
Oh, look, there's a huge increase in mocktails, yeah. Right across Australia, particularly. There's some amazing mocktails and different mixes coming online. It seems to be more and more people that are moving towards non-alcoholic alternatives than ever before. We've noticed it a huge amount in our business. So that's basically it, and then just put some sparkling water in there to finish it up.
I've got to say, this almost smells like the real thing. Is it just me, or does it? It has like a...
Well, it's meant to.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think I definitely smell the mint after
Yes.
it was bruised a few times. Yeah.
And a little bit of garnish on each one.
Make it pretty.
Make it pretty. Come here. I probably should be using these.
We're amongst friends, so.
We are, yes, that's true.
And a straw.
All right.
Notice the
Ooh,
paper
it looks
straws and not
amazing.
the new ones. And
Yeah.
who's going to try that?
I'll go for it.
Okay, great.
We may have
So,
to
here we go.
quickly do the second one. Kind of running out of
sure.
time, but...
Oh,
Very
we are,
good.
aren't we?
Very good.
Okay.
Really refreshing.
So the second one is, look, I'll just do this one here.
Yeah.
So this is a called Blue Lagoon.
All the secrets are
Is it
underneath
going to
the
be
bar.
bright blue? Oh, I'm so excited.
So this is some. I've just got a glass down there.
Yeah,
if I
I'll
can
get it.
grab that.
Iceland.
Yep.
So
This is orange juice.
Yeah,
okay.
that's orange.
this is just orange juice,
Yeah,
and it's unsweetened orange juice. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
So
Doesn't
we'll
matter
just
what
put
kind of
that in
orange
there.
juice, just any kind of orange juice.
Yep, any kind of orange juice, and we're going to put a little bit of what's called toasted marshmallow in it.
Oh.
So,
And so what's this drink called?
so this is called Blue Lagoon.
Blue Lagoon.
And we just put, it doesn't need a lot of that in there, it gives it that really nice flavour. And we put some ice in there as well. Oops, going all over the place.
The party's already started.
And then just to give it that nice little contrast,
So it lives up to its name, obviously.
yeah, we put in oops, that was probably a bit much, a little bit of blue cacao, and just let that
Oh,
sink
it does
to the
the cool
bottom.
level
pretty.
thing.
And it looks a lovely
Awesome.
two-layered
So I hear you
Cocktail.
also have some champagne, some spiced champagne for us, was it?
We do, yeah.
Yeah?
So you can't have the
try that?
end of the year without champagne. And so I've got one here. And if we bring those glasses over here, we can...
It's not often we get to toast when Mum's at the table, I must say. So it's pretty special.
So what I'm going to do with this is put in a little bit of elderflower, which
Right.
is just so nice.
And what does that do?
It just adds a little bit of sweetness and depth of flavour.
Okay.
There we go. And you can have it without it, but it just adds a beautiful
Also available at Alco-Free?
contrast. Also available, and of course, we need some bubbly.
That's the sound that you're looking for at the end of the year, huh?
That is perfect.
Pop that bubbly.
Here we go.
Oh, we're overflowing. The party started.
There we go.
So it'd be great. You can kind of set up a little bit of a bar at your house and have some drinks for your guests.
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
visiting your guests or
yeah.
for special
There we
occasions,
go.
weddings.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, thank you, Trevor. So we made a mojito, we made a, what was this again?
Blue Lagoon.
Blue Lagoon.
Here we go.
And we have some champagne. Well, thank you very much for showing us this. So they're all on your website?
Yes,
All on
they
your
are.
website. So
Yep.
check that out. Big thanks to Trevor for the delicious drinks, and a big thanks to you at home for joining us, and of course to the ladies as well. Wishing you all a very happy new year and God's biggest blessings for 2019. See you next time.
Thumbs up.